We can just start talking to them. Okay, so I just hit the record, just so everybody knows we're starting to record now. I would love to introduce everybody in the group to my friend Brad Smith. We have known each other from when we both lived in Wilmington, North Carolina. He used to come to my classes. And also we have children that are the same age, and they used to carpool together and go to the same school together when they were really little, and now they're in college.
Oh, damn.
So Brad, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? We said we talk about mantra yoga. Why don't you talk just a little bit about your yoga background in general?
Okay. Well, wow.
Oh yeah, tell us where you're at now.
Well, I started practicing back in the day in 1981. And a little German lady who taught in the girls' dorm at the College of Charleston. And it was kind of, I kind of came and went from the yoga world, but kind of got back into it about the time you're in Wilmington. And so that's when we met and got back into yoga in a big way. But, it always had been for me. And I remember when I first approached doing yoga practice, that really what I was interested in all the time was meditation. I might not have known that exactly when I first started, but it got to be more and more apparent to me that's what I was really after. And it was hard to find good instruction. So we, about 10 years ago, uprooted ourselves from North Carolina and moved out to Kansas. Which interesting thing is there wasn't as much going on in the yoga world here, at least not something that you could easily see on a web search. But I found a really good meditation teacher. And she combined meditation with asana practice. And I went through teacher training with her for yoga teacher training.
Oh, nice.
And also got a lot of meditation work with her. And the type of meditation that she taught me was largely mantra based, that we would use mantras frequently. Like when we were sitting for meditation, we would use a mantra, or you could let the mantra go for a little while, that you could use the mantra to get yourself settled, or you could use a mantra throughout the day. And so I found myself really using it as a tool because it had a tremendous impact, particularly that first winter here in Kansas. And it was kind of a rough gray winter. And I found myself having a hard time. And so she suggested a practice for me. And it was like, oh, I've been waiting for this. So it was a bit like, before using that particular mantra, which is the Gayatri mantra, I felt like I was just barely treading water emotionally. And once I started using that mantra, I felt like I was now floating securely with a life vest. And it was a fairly immediate effect. It was very, very buoyant, very, gave me a very secure and light feeling. And it wasn't just an emotional thing. It was something that was working in a different realm that gave me a sense of security and lightness. So
we talked a little bit last night in preparation to talk a little bit about what we wanted to talk about today. And I had shared that I've gone to some kirtans where they create a feeling that's kind of an ecstatic feeling, where there's a feeling that you're really being taken to the extremes. And I've also been to some where there's a real gentle, even tone to it. And it sounds like when the way that you describe what you receive from mantra is that evenness and comfort.
Yes, and different mantras have different purposes, although they're all good. And these, by the way, just to reiterate, these are Sanskrit mantras. Most of them come from traditions that we would associate with Hinduism or yoga. And they do have specific purposes, although they can also be used in a general way. But it's the vibration of those syllables that I think actually does something on a subtle level. And it helps to stabilize the mind, first of all, gives you something to do, gives you something to focus on. Because, when we think of Americans trying to meditate, we usually think of grocery lists and what do I need to do next, and what's for supper, and I really want to get up because this is boring. You just start fidgeting. The mind just starts fidgeting. So it's kind of nice to have something to give it something dynamic to focus on, not like a single point, but something that kind of resonates. But then once you get beyond that, just simple concentrating on something, I think the actual vibratory effect of the mantra starts to work more in the basement of the mind, where all the dusty boxes are, all the stuff that really needs to be straightened out. The stuff that's like, I think of it as like being underneath the emotions. It's the energetics going on in whatever part of the mind it is. And the yogis would say that the mind is not just what we consider the mind in the West, but it's all these aspects of the subtle body.
Mm-hmm.
So the congestion.
I have this background. I studied cognitive studies in college, and when I got, like, originally when I went to school, I kind of thought of the conscious mind as like 80% of our minds, and then the unconscious was maybe like 20%. And then when I got out of college, I realized I kind of had this realization of it as being like, 40% of our mind was conscious. And now I'm at like 2% of our mind we're conscious of. So it's like the more I learn about how the mind works, the more I believe that we operate with very little conscious awareness of all that we are doing.
Yeah. And I think I used the term Drano last night. Mantras can work to kind of clean out the pipes, so to speak, and allow more flow. And this idea from electricity or plumbing is that if you have high pressure in a line, the flow is slow. It's restricted. And this is more like low pressure, high flow. And it's easy, and there's less friction. That's just kind of the way I look at it.
So I think that we should can you share one with us so we can hear it, because we keep talking about it, and I don't know that anyone that's listening has ever done one. So we're going to do at least a couple, and let's do one now, and then we can talk a little bit about it. And you're using a mala. We can talk about the mala
real quick.
I'll share. Yeah. I would like to share. I would love for you to share how you use mala.
Well, this is a simple mala. I don't know how well it shows up here in front of the camera, but this is it's 108 beads, and this is one someone made for me. It's mostly Rudraksha seeds, and that's kind of a traditional mala from the East. So it's got 108 beads plus this. I don't know, you get it right place. The one there, the white one, is the marrow bead, which is kind of the pivot point. And there's usually a tassel there or something. But you don't count that bead. And so I'll hold it.
I've heard that you shouldn't touch the guru bead.
But I shouldn't, but I usually.
I always feel kind of bad because I do, and then I'm like, oh man, I wasn't supposed to touch it.
I know, gosh. And if you use your index finger, you're really doing it wrong. But you could be strict with it or not. I try not to perseverate over it. So I'll start just holding it just with the middle finger, and I might have my other little fingers under there supporting it.
So there's 108 beads on a mala, in case we kind of lost it. It's a counting device, and it's very similar to a rosary.
And so I'll just count each time I do the mantra, I'll advance one bead. And depending on how long the mantra is, it could take a while. And then once you get to the end.
Every single time you say the mantra, you advance a bead.
Yes. So I'll get to 108. And then instead of crossing, if I wanted to do another mala, I just flip it over and go back the other way. So theoretically, not touching it, although
there's different techniques for doing that. Like, you know, it's kind of flipping or whatever, but it seemed like flipping.
Yeah. And there are ways, there are counting systems with your fingers too, if you don't happen to have that, but that's a little bit more complicated to explain.
It's the, you know, is there with it, it's really just more like a counter and maybe to keep your hand busy.
Mm-hmm. And it, you know, it is, I think it picks up some of the energy of the mantra. And I kind of feel like that you can wear it.
It has an energy of its own, I feel like, even if you're not counting with it.
I think so. So I'll sometimes wear it, especially if I'm teaching. So let's start with I'd like to start with a really simple mantra. It's Ham Sa, and that's one you might even be familiar with.
I'm not very familiar with mantra. I've done a little bit, but not much. I know a little about a lot.
Okay. Ham Sa is a neat one. It's different because you don't have to use a mala with it. You can. It's usually done silently, and you inhale with Ham silently, exhale with Sa. So just to start.
Do you want me to like go along with you, or you just want, you know what, I'm gonna just
just for a moment, we'll just play with this for just a moment.
Okay.
I kind of felt like I needed to introduce this one because it's so useful. So just find yourself in a comfortable seat with your spine easily extending toward the ceiling. Let your shoulders relax. And inhaling and exhaling through the nose, just kind of feel the breath come in. You can feel it even just coming into the center of the chest where your heart is, and just allow it to let the breath just work there. And as you exhale, is more of just a relaxation, just letting go physically with the body, and also just kind of letting go inside. And so connecting, bringing the mantra in is just it's almost like the breath says it for you. It's inhale with Om, exhale Sa. That Sa is just kind of a release, a surrender. Inhaling with Om, exhale Sa. We won't do this real long. I just wanted to introduce it. I would normally do that longer with students, but on a webcast, it'd be a lot of silence.
Yeah, no, I thought it was exactly what we need for this. That's really interesting. It almost like, makes your breath sort of to a certain shape with that.
Yeah, it does. I think it really corrals the mind and kind of brings it into the center.
It's a simple one, I like it because the other mantras I've heard are kind of complicated.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like, I could do this one.
Well, those complicated ones, they look impressive, but that Sa is actually really powerful.
Does it have, you said that they have like meanings. Is there, like there's certain times when you use different mantras, like you were saying, you were kind of, depressed when you first moved out to Kansas, and then you were sort of prescribed the Gayatri mantra, and so what is the Hamsa? Like if you were prescribed Hamsa.
A Hamsa is a swan, and a swan is a symbol of transformation. I'm sure there are other meanings, because a lot of these Sanskrit terms have multiple meanings in our language, that they tend to have layers to them. But it's transformation. The mantra is often, there's another version of it called Soham. It's kind of almost the opposite. And I think there's an energetic difference in them. I'm not as familiar with Soham, but Hamsa. It's a very calming mantra, and like the symbology of the swan and yoga is change. And
we have a member of our group in Morocco who is an expert in Sanskrit, and so sometime we'll get him. We can talk a little bit about it. He's one of the people I want to bring on to these, but it'd be interesting to know, what do these things mean, and also that the vibrations of the sound themselves, they just have they're almost like beyond meaning. The sounds of Sanskrit are sacred.
Exactly, and that's where a lot of the effect of the mantra really is in the vibration. So how about we do another one that's just slightly longer?
Okay. I was working on Hamsa. I'm going to put myself on mute while you teach, just because there was like a honking noise outside. So
okay. So Hamsa is a good one to use when you're in your formal sitting meditation. This mantra I also use a lot for my sitting time. It is Om Namah Shivaya. So that would literally mean I bow with deep respect to Shiva. And there's an added meaning to it that I bow with deep respect to Shiva, which is my inner self. So the self beyond what we think of usually as who we are. So that one is Om Namah Shivaya. I'm going to say it out loud. So you're welcome to follow along or not. And that's usually what I'll do. If I'm teaching, I'll say, you can pronounce it. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
And what's great is everybody could just put themselves on mute and we can follow along, but nobody has to know whether we're doing it well or not.
Yeah. And I could say anything I want to and you can't stop me. So here we go. I'll actually use the beads for this. So, Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Now I change tone a little bit. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 So just following the breath, notice what effect that has.
It's interesting what a different feeling that creates from the Hamsa.
It is. I always notice if, like, especially if I'm saying it out loud, that it changes over the course course of the mala. The quality of, I don't think it's just my voice, but just the quality of how the mantra is working. I can feel it in different ways, and I can kind of feel like, I don't know if my voice is literally or physically changing so much as there's some different quality that's starting to come out.
Being expressed. So that one is, what is the purpose of that Om Namah Shivaya?
Well, it's to connect with your higher self. It, I think it works on a lot of levels. At least for me, it smooths out whatever's going on. I find that it's really useful if, especially early in the day, if I've got a really busy day and I'm nervous about it, it has a real, not just calming, but stabilizing effect. I find that I might start out, I'm kind of saying, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And after a while, it's like, oh, it just sort of relaxes and lets go. And it helps me to identify a little bit less with whatever's going on that I'm dealing with, and identify more with my own higher self.
Interesting. Yeah.
And yeah, it burns things up too. I think it has a quality, it's got a fiery quality too.
There's a couple of things that are a little bit taking it off of the things that you're saying. So I don't, if you feel like you want to say more about that, just let me know and we'll come back to it. But I had a couple of questions. First of all, the mala itself, it counts 108. Is there sort of a goal number of repetitions, or is it just sort of like I have 5 minutes, or a little bit of both? I mean, like if I, in a kind of ideal circumstance, is there a number that you're supposed to do for things?
And that, at least the way I've been taught, is that numbers of things aren't, you can get hung up on them. It's better to do enough, that 100 repetitions may be enough. So 108 is slightly better in case you didn't quite do it right a couple of times. But it may be that you need more, and you kind of trust the feeling that you have. Like if you've only got 5 minutes, you only have 5 minutes. But if you have more time, you pay attention to what's going on. Is there tension in your heart? Is there tension in your belly, or wherever you're feeling it? And if you do the mantra, do a mala, do you feel a difference? Do you feel something open up? So often I'll just kind of go with that feeling of, was Om Namah Shivaya what I needed, or was there another mantra?
And that's, you've been practicing for a while, and so you kind of like, I'm the same way. Like my, asana, I can sometimes 5 minutes does the trick, and sometimes I need it longer, and I'm experienced enough to just kind of be comfortable with that. But when you start out, you may not know it, so I'm just wondering, like, is there kind of so you said 100? That's sort of the prescribed.
Well, it's a good number. I could also say, like, I asked my teacher, or my teacher's teacher, who's now my teacher, so Shambhavananda. I asked him a couple of times on chats, hey, can I have a sankalpa? And I emailed him, and he didn't answer. A sankalpa means, it's kind of like a determination, or it's basically, I'm going to do this. I don't know if that's the best definition of what it is, but it's basically, I'm going to do this practice. This is my promise to myself.
Kind of like running a marathon.
Yeah. And so he said, well, okay, do 10 malas of Ganesh mantra twice a day. which was a lot. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And it had a big effect. It really did. And I did it for, I think it was for 35 days, something like that. So it wasn't a real long time, but it meant like every morning and every evening, I was going to do this practice. And so doing that many repetitions on a regular basis, it starts to get a momentum and it starts to burn things up. And it starts to open things up. And so I felt some pretty big connection or pretty big effects from that, and also felt a much stronger connection with the Ganesh mantra from that practice.
And I want to bring up, because you've used a lot of spiritual language, and we have not really talked about your work as a nurse. So you had shared that when you were working with hospice, that you were using mantra to help be a presence to people as their loved ones were transitioning, for the people that were in transition. And I was hoping that you talk a little bit about that, but also, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about your language, about the fact that you are talking, about burning things up and things like that. And then, you're in a medical profession. So do you feel that you're just kind of operating at different thought levels, or do you feel like somehow this is integrated in with your knowledge of medicine?
I think it's different levels at the same time. I think, in a way, like Western medicine certainly works on a physiological level. But there's also the more subtle stuff that's going on at the same time. So I would, especially in hospice, because it really is a more, I think, a more obviously spiritual part of medical care in the West. That's certainly addressed more strongly, and that's a time when people really need it. And that I need to be fully present with these people and not attached to what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really there, but I'm not being hooked by it or affected by it. So if, especially as we're getting closer to death, there's family members in there, and they're, losing, they're being yanked by, it's almost like there's this pull back and forth. The family's is having anticipatory grief, and the patient's working on dying. So sometimes there's that pull. It seems like we had this saying that, the patient won't die and won't die and won't die. Well, the minute family leaves the room, sometimes they go. And it's like they don't want to die in front of the people. At least that's the way we usually think of it. But I kind of wonder if there's a pull, like that grief kind of keeps them locked there. They can't leave. They can't transition out of this life, because of there's a connection between them and their family members, and that grief kind of holds you there. That's just a thought.
And so you said that you kind of felt that you could be this sort of neutral presence in the room for them.
Grounding presence.
And what did you use a specific mantra, or was it just sort of depending on the circumstances?
It depended on
it was to ground yourself.
It did depend on how much freedom I had to be spacey. If I had to do a lot of thinking, I'd use all the mushrooms.
You were sitting there doing a bunch of the machines and
yeah, and I mean, it's pretty low tech in hospice, but if I'm like thinking, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Then Om Namah Shivaya was usually my go-to. It's just easy. It's there. It's if you do these mantras enough, they're kind of there in the background. You don't have to consciously
And you weren't like
going.
sitting there muttering under your breath. It's just in your head, right?
Yeah, I'm not, well, depends. Sometimes I felt like I could. Um, Sometimes I would do that longer mantra, the Mahamrityunjaya, which is a really good one at the transition toward death. And that's the Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugantim Pushtivardhanam Urvara Kamiva Bantanan Mritur Makshia Mamritat. Usually I do that silently, but sometimes I'd sort of whisper it. And that's a really powerful mantra. But both of those are Shiva mantras, by the way. So there's Om Namah Shivaya is obvious, but the Mahamrityunjaya is a Shiva mantra too.
So it's it goes back to Shiva Tantra. Is that where these come out of?
It probably predates that, but it was, yeah, the Shaivite tantric practitioners certainly use a lot of Shiva mantras.
Interesting.
I think the Mahamrityunjaya is pretty old, so I don't know if it's Vedic, because that's a good question, because I don't know if Shiva came into prominence until after the Vedic period. That might have been Rudra, but anyway, it's a wonderful mantra. So, but I would use it just to keep myself grounded. Not necessarily using it for the person who's dying or projecting it out, but just more to kind of keep my energy contained and keep myself open, and to a certain extent shield myself too at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Does it, because a lot of people who are empathic have this problem where, they put themselves in these situations and they're these wonderful, nurturing people, and then it's like your battery's drained all the time because,
Yeah.
you can sort of want to take on everybody's problems. So
Right.
really important as you become more empathic to have the ability to shield and ground yourself, and not necessarily, I don't think, like build a wall. Shielding, I think it sort of implies that,
Yeah.
but it's
There's like openness and protected and being protected at the same time. Like somehow, and I found that in yoga classes too, that I sometimes have to protect myself from the people around me, because who knows what they're kind of, I'm starting to feel a little bit more myself. So I sometimes will just do mantra during class. So I find that really helpful. So.
I am hearing from a lot of people right now that they're feeling sort of overwhelmed, and I was wondering if you might share a mantra with us to help people right now who are dealing with. I've just had so many people telling me that they're feeling really overloaded. Oh, look, you haven't
Can you
printed one
see
out.
that? Does that show up on the?
No, you read my mind.
I even printed it out.
That's so
This
great.
is Ganesh. So this is Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Okay, so Om is the
Oh,
background noise of the universe. Gam is a seed mantra for Ganesh. Ganapataye is I'm addressing myself toward Ganesh, and Namaha is I bow with deep respect. So Ganesh is the Lord of the multitudes. It's the god with the human body and the elephant head, who's the remover of obstacles. He has a lot of things that he does, a lot of superpowers, so to speak. Remover of obstacles. And so I don't think of him so much as the one who helps me find the best parking place, but kind of the one who helps me be okay with not having the closest parking place, of saying, I will leave that to someone else because I need to park I need to park in the spot that's perfect for me. It's kind of about, it's good for any beginning of any endeavor, but good for I think troubled times too.
Removing the obstacles within yourself, not your external obstacles, is I think what you're getting to. That sense
Yeah.
of,
And if
oh,
you're,
I need that one. I'm so focused on that thing. And
yeah, and if you're like a,
the universe wants me to be there.
and if you're a non-dualistic tantric type person, the outside obstacles and the inside obstacles aren't really any different. So we could do this one. So Om
Okay, I'm
Gam.
going to put myself on mute again, just so
Okay.
that we have people can hear somebody who knows what they're talking about and not hear me.
Okay. And before you do, how much time do we have?
We are at, I checked it a minute ago and we were at like 9:40. So we're right at 9:40. So
Okay.
let's do this one and then we'll kind of wrap up. And I want to share also the discount that I have in the store on Mala's at the end. So if you want to stay toward the end to see that discount, I'll share it. If not, you can drop off when I start talking about it. So.
And I've already got my mala and knots. When I do that.
Okay,
Also, I'm just going to do part of a mala. I won't do the whole thing because this one takes a little bit longer.
okay.
I just want you to feel the difference. This is a little bit different mantra, so just kind of feel. And can you see it?
Can you
More or
back
less
away closer to you?
closer to me.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so ready?
Okay. Now I'm muting.
So again, finding a comfortable seat and connecting with your breath. Just kind of take a nice, easy inhalation and let go inside. Just kind of surrender to the present moment. So Ganesh mantra. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. 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 Om Gam Ganapataye 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 Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye.
That was perfect. I think that that's like a great note for us to end on, literally. But I have an invitation I want to extend to you. And if you haven't come on Facebook Live before, just IM me and I'll tell you how to do it. But you're welcome to come into the group at any time on a Facebook Live and lead mantra with whoever wants to join you. I would love to have you do that. And also, we didn't talk, it would be amazing. And if we want to set up some Zoom sometime, we can kind of get a group of people where we can leave the mics open and then see what it feels like to do with a group, because I think it's amazing the energy sound has as a group. But I really wanted people to hear just this clear and simple instructions from you today.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming and sharing with us. I'm going to share the discount on the malas now, and you're welcome to stay on and see. I'm actually going to do a screen share and show everybody. We have a code that's going to go this week, and the code is mantra. And for South, I have a screen, so when you come in, sign up for the mailing list, and I'm staying in touch with people through the mailing list, trying to send out things regularly to my mailing list now. And when you come to the sadhana, there's the catalog with all the products, and if you just select mala, oops, and still working this out. Then you see the malas that are for sale. And these are made by Rebecca Moon. Sorry, it keeps on asking for this. She hand selects the stones, and they're beautiful. Like it's really like every stone is. Let me just. Sorry, I have to take that welcome mat off. Every stone is like hand selected, and they're rough. They have a texture and a weight to them. They're like, she hand knots everything, she prays over them. They're beautiful malas. One of my goals is to get better pictures up for everybody so they can really see, but all of the malas are 40% off right now with the code mantra. So you can come on and hopefully just browse around and at least see what we have and hopefully buy some if you want. But they're really, really beautiful and special. And sometime I want to have her in. I also just want to show people while I'm here that we also have a discussion board here. And this is a forum that we have, and we have a yoga book club that's getting started there. And this month we're going to be reading Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Meese. So if you want to join in on the book club, it's free. It's right there. And this just allows us to keep our discussions all together in a way that we can't on Facebook, where we can really like have a conversation that goes for a month. So I hope that people will join us for that. Okay, I'm going to stop my share. The code is mantra, MANTRA. It's going to go for a week, and I'll put it in when we post the replay. And after this records, I'll upload it to YouTube, and probably tomorrow it'll be up on the replay for people who weren't able to join today. Brad, is there a way that people can get in touch with you if they are interested in working with you? Or
wow. Well, I'm on Facebook, obviously. I'm one of probably a million Brad Smiths.
PM me, come in the group and look for Brad Smith in our group, and then PM that guy.
Yeah, you could message me. You could send me an email. I'm at bsprairiehawk@gmail.com. So it's one BSPRAIRIEHAWK, because Brad Smith 2 million is not something I wanted to do. And that's at Gmail.
And then for people who are seeing this, and because we're going to have this up on YouTube, I mentioned the group. You can go to Facebook, and you can go to it's the Sadhana community. On Facebook, there's a group and there's a page. But if you go to the page, there's a link to the group. And the group is where all the action is. The page is just, it's a long story. But anyway, we have to have a page and a group. Go to the group, Sadhana, SADHANA community. And you can find Brad there because that's the only way you'll find him.
Or come to Wichita.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed spending some more time with you.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Yeah, I know. It's fabulous to see you again. And we're going to, we'll do more events, and we'll bring in our mala maker, and we'll bring in our friend in Morocco, Muhammad, who teaches mantra sometime, and we'll have a really interesting conversation then.
Yeah.
Not that this wasn't.
I look forward to that. And, there's, I might have mentioned the medicine Buddha practice. That's a Tibetan one, and that's specifically for healing. And that might be fun to do.
Well, I have a link coming in. It's going to come in to share tomorrow for somebody who has a 21-day challenge for a medicine mantra. And yes, I would love to do the medicine mantra here for the group. So we'll talk about that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I want to let people know that there is I'll stop the recording. Now, so hang on. I'm just going to stop the recording. We're going to stay here and we can keep talking. So, Siobhan, if you want to stay on, you're welcome to. I'm just going to stop the recording because I don't want to drag on.